Hey guys, tonight we're unraveling one of those fog-drenched stories where every step you take feels like it might disappear beneath your feet. A silk gown, a locked garden gate, a grand estate perched on a cliff's edge, and an heiress who steps into the fog during her own engagement gala and never returns. You're going to follow her path. Slowly, carefully, maybe a little too late. There's a silver mist curling around your ankles even now. You feel it in the back of your throat, soft and damp like a breath you can't remember taking. You're not going to survive this, probably, but you'll look stylish while trying. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive late. The coastal air is syrupy with salt and fog, and the gravel beneath your boots crunches like it's chewing secrets. A manor looms ahead, lights glowing like gold coins behind lace-draped windows. This is Renmore Estate, summer home of the Lancaster family and current scene of something that's not quite right. You step past the stone lions flanking the front steps. Someone has dressed them in ribbons, but the fog has curled them into damp frowns. Inside, the remnants of a party, frozen in half-smiles and raised glasses. Champagne half-drunk, music paused. A violin bow lies discarded on a stool. They say she walked out exactly at dusk. You follow the last footprints visible on the marble floor. They're hers, probably. Small, precise. The kind of step someone makes when they know they're being watched. She was wearing silk. Or maybe velvet. You ask someone near the grand piano. She had a green dress, he says. I thought it was blue, someone else adds. And an older woman, swirling a half-empty coupe of champagne, laughs and says, she wasn't wearing anything when she left. Nothing but fog. You don't smile. You move deeper into the manor. The hallways smell like lemon polish and wilted roses. In her bedroom, a vanity still holds the warmth of her fingertips. One drawer is open, just enough for you to notice a piece of sheet music folded into a music box. When you lift the lid, the melody plays, a slow, haunted waltz, and a note pops up where the ballerina should be. I didn't belong here. I never did. I only danced to delay the fog. Mainstream fact? Heiresses in the early 1900s often held multi-day engagements, sometimes designed more for appearances than affection. Family names mattered more than compatibility. So did property lines. Fringe tidbit? A little-known social diary from a 1911 heiress in Cornwall describes a recurring dream of fog rolling in through the ballroom windows. She claimed she would wake up with salt in her mouth and sand under her nails. Historians still argue whether those entries were symbolic or something more uncomfortably literal. You pocket the note. Back downstairs, a maid quietly asks if you've checked the greenhouse yet. You haven't, so you go. Through the library, past the long hall of animal portraits. Don't stare too long at the goat with the monocle, and out the side door. The fog is thicker now. It doesn't roll, it hangs like breath frozen mid-exhale. The greenhouse is locked. Except, it isn't. The latch clicks open under your hand like it's been waiting for you. Inside, damp air, overripe orchids, and something ticking beneath the potting bench. You kneel, find a suitcase, leather, old, locked with a broken pocket watch, its hands frozen at 4:17. You open it. Inside, newspaper clippings, all with headlines like, Woman vanishes in seaside fog. Bride last seen stepping into mist. Gone without a trace. Another heiress lost to the dunes. And you realize she wasn't the first. She may not even be the last. You close the suitcase. The fog presses against the glass. You stay there in the greenhouse a moment longer, the fog outside breathing like it's alive, swelling against the glass, retreating, then pressing close again. The suitcase at your feet hums with that after feeling you get when someone's just left a room, or maybe just slipped between dimensions. You lift the lid again, rechecking the clippings. They span decades. Some are neatly folded, some torn at jagged angles. All women, all vanished, always from places near the sea, always in fog. You glance at the broken watch again. For 17. You file it away. Back inside the manor, the guests are thinner now. Maybe they're gone. Maybe they were never really there. But 3 remain, clustered near the hearth with the kind of casual avoidance only wealthy people can master. Their silence smells like money and secrets. You sit down near them without asking. They don't flinch. You ask about her, Margot Lancaster, the heiress, the one who walked into the fog. She was always a bit delicate, says the woman in a pale gray silk shawl, but clever, knew when to smile and when not to. She kept journals, adds the man beside her, stacks of them, wrote about her dreams obsessively. She wasn't dreaming lately, says the third, a younger man with a long scar along his jaw. She was remembering. You ask what color her dress was. All 3 give different answers. Lavender, says one. Emerald, says another. No dress, says the third. She wore the fog like a veil. You stand up, because the fire crackles, and tucked between 2 logs is something folded and scorched. You reach in with the fire tongs. It's a page, torn from one of her journals, charred around the edges. The ink wobbly but still legible. If I turn around, it will pull me back. I have to walk forward. I must remember not to run. You let that sit in your chest a minute. There's movement down the hall. A maid again, or maybe the same one from earlier. She holds out something in her palm. A key, small, ornate, carved like a wisteria vine. She doesn't say where it leads, but you know. The dressing room, Margot's private space. You follow the hall up the spiral stairs, to the corner where the wallpaper turns slightly more floral, slightly more faded. Her door creaks open before your hand touches it. The room inside is all glass and shadow, mirrors everywhere, but none of them reflect you correctly. One is delayed by a second. Another shows you smiling when you're not. One tilts your head even when you hold still. But the one in the center, the tall, gilded one, is smeared. A message written in lipstick. It always starts in the greenhouse, ends at the sea. Don't forget the fog is listening. You reach out, touch the glass. It's cold. Wet. As if it rained inside. And behind the reflection, just barely, you see movement. You turn. No one. But the mirrors have changed again. Each one now shows a different scene. The study, the staircase, the cliff, and her Margot in each of them, moving through them like memories stitched together out of sequence. Mainstream fact? Throughout Europe in the 19th and early 20th centuries, some estates included reflection rooms, small chambers lined with polished glass, said to help with self-awareness, prayer, or to center the soul before travel. Fringe tidbit? In one French chateau, the reflection room allegedly showed visitors different versions of themselves. Guests were discouraged from visiting more than once in a season. One diary from 1889 simply reads, "I saw myself blink. I did not." Historians still argue whether these were mirrors, illusions, or ritual spaces meant for something else entirely. You pull away from the mirror and look down. There's a strand of pearls on the floor. Not broken, just placed, like she left a breadcrumb behind. You pick them up, but they feel wrong in your palm. Too cold for pearls. You pocket them anyway. You leave the dressing room and descend the stairs again. The manor has gone quiet. Even the fog outside feels like it's holding its breath. Then, from the parlor, the faint sound of music. Someone is playing the waltz again. Margot's waltz. But when you reach the piano, no one is there. Just a metronome ticking, steady, at the exact rhythm of a heartbeat slowed to dreaming. You sit down beside it, and find the piano bench still warm. You don't sit long. That warmth on the bench, the not quite human kind, starts to crawl up your spine like a whisper you're not ready to hear. You rise slowly, letting the ticking of the metronome carry you back through the room. It doesn't slow or speed up, just ticks at that same resting heartbeat pace. A reminder that time is still watching. Somewhere down the hallway, a door clicks open. It's not the wind. There hasn't been wind in hours. You follow it, and you find the study, wood-paneled, quiet, and absurdly over-decorated. Taxidermy birds line the ceiling trim like they're mid-flight, forever frozen. Books fill the walls, but none of the titles are familiar or real. One reads Atlas of Lost Paths. Another simply says, Volume 4, The Red Fog. There's a low fire in the grate. You crouch beside it, brushing away ash with your sleeve. Another journal page, folded once, set carefully beneath the iron grate like it was meant to be burned. Then, forgotten. Don't trust the third version of the story. You're still staring at it when someone clears their throat. You look up, and it's one of the three remaining guests. The man with the scar. His eyes gleam like polished stone. Looking for Margot? He says. You don't answer. She left something for you, he adds, then slips a small envelope from his coat pocket and sets it on the desk. Then he walks out without another word. You open the envelope. Inside is a photograph, black and white, of the greenhouse, but dated 1932. There's a figure at the door, mid-step into the fog, wearing the same dress Margot wore. Or maybe it is her. Same face, same tilt of the chin. But it can't be. That photo is nearly a century old. You flip it over, written in flowing script. She walks again every third generation. You let that echo sit for a moment, because now you're starting to wonder, is this even Margot's story anymore? Or is it yours? You pocket the photo and start to retrace her last known path. You stop first at the hallway window, where the mist swirls like it knows you're looking. Then out into the hedged walk. You find three people standing just beyond the rose arbor. The same trio, except now they don't look like guests. They're standing too still. Their clothes don't quite match the era. You step closer, and they speak one at a time. She never told the truth about the mirror, says the woman in gray. She never meant to disappear, says the older man, staring at the garden wall. She just didn't know what she'd wake up as, says the one with the scar. You ask them plainly now, what color was the dress? They smile all at once. She changed it, says one. Every time she remembered. You ask what happened to her. They don't answer. Instead, the woman holds out a hand and drops something into your palm. A glass button. Smooth, cold, slightly iridescent. The kind used on morning gowns in the late 1800s. Mainstream fact: morning clothes often included hidden messages. Buttons made of jet glass, lace with initials woven subtly into the trim, or pockets lined with pressed flowers from a funeral. Fringe tidbit: in one museum archive, a morning dress was discovered with its hem stitched closed. Inside, a note read, "For the one who walks again, do not unseal until the fog lifts." Historians still argue whether these were acts of grief, superstition, or encoded instructions passed through generations. You clutch the button and notice that your fingers are shaking slightly, not from cold, from recognition. Back inside the manor, you make your way to the west stairwell. Because you remember now Margot was seen heading there. Not by you, not by anyone reliable, but something in your gut tells you that's where she turned. Where she chose the fog over the ballroom. The stairwell creaks in a way that feels deliberate. At the top, a portrait waits. You recognize the painting immediately, though you've never seen it before. Margot, but not. Same features, different eyes, and painted wearing a gown made of seafoam and shadow. You lean in, studying the texture. The brush strokes ripple when you shift angles. And behind the painting's glass, you see your own reflection. But wearing her dress, you step back. The hallway behind you is darker now, as if the fog has entered the house. You don't turn around. Not right away. The fog's presence behind you isn't physical. It's psychological. It doesn't need to brush your skin or creep up your ankles anymore. It just needs you to know it's there. It hums softly now, like a choir singing through glass. You step away from the portrait. The eyes in it don't follow you. They stay fixed on the hallway ahead, almost like they're trying to look through the manor itself. Beyond it, into whatever Margot saw when she stepped off her own map. The air gets colder. You wrap your arms around yourself as you descend the stairs again. The manor is hollowing. Rooms you passed earlier are darker, smaller, like the house itself is inhaling, getting ready to disappear after her. You head to the greenhouse again, not because you think she'll be there, but because the ticking suitcase won't stop living rent-free in your brain. Outdoors, the fog is thicker, but somehow brighter, like it's not lit from the sky, but from within. You reach the greenhouse door. It opens easier this time. No resistance. Inside, the suitcase is still under the bench. But now the watch is gone. In its place is a red ribbon, curled like a question mark. And stuck to the bottom of the suitcase, you notice, finally, a small envelope wedged between the liner and the frame. You pry it out. Inside is a folded map, hand-drawn, of the estate, but not as it looks today. This one includes a second garden, a building no longer standing, and a path that leads beyond the cliff edge. Not over it, beyond it, like there's something just past where the land is supposed to stop. You stare at that sketch, then flip the map over. Written in pencil. When you hear the bell, take only 3 steps. You fold the map into your pocket. Step outside. And there it is. A single deep toll. Somewhere between a foghorn and a grandfather clock. You freeze. The sea is still distant. The waves hush softly, like they're listening. You remember 3 steps, so you take them. 1, 2, 3, and your boot hits something solid that shouldn't be there. Stone, half buried in the soil. You clear away dead leaves and dirt. A plaque, too faded to read entirely, but the last line is legible. She walked forward and never turned, because she knew. You look up. The path beyond the cliff is visible now. Narrow, winding, not carved, not paved. More like worn down over time, as if many feet walked it. You glance back toward the manor, and it's flickering slightly now, like candlelight behind thin fabric. Unsteady, almost optional. Mainstream fact? Certain estates along the English coast were constructed on movable maps, meaning parts of their landscaping and pathways were restructured to create optical illusions from a distance, often to fool or impress visiting guests. Fringe tidbit? A 1923 estate plan from Devon was later revealed to include a path drawn only in red ink, to be revealed only in fog. The gardener who confessed this said it was not meant for the living. Historians still argue whether these were spiritual beliefs, metaphorical designs, or actual invitations. You take another step forward, and the fog presses flatter against your face, like cool silk. And that's when you hear a voice, not loud, but very clear. Don't bring anything from the mirror. You stop cold. The voice wasn't yours. Wasn't Margot's either. But it said it like you had something with you that didn't belong here. You check your pockets. The pearls? Still there. The button? Also there. The map? Obviously. And the photo. You unfold it again. The one from 1932. You squint. Now, there are two figures at the greenhouse door. The second is blurry, but familiar. You, almost, but not quite. Their reflection is caught in the greenhouse glass, and the reflection is smiling. You're not. You fold the photo away and breathe. The air tastes of salt and roses, and something else, like old perfume and thunder about to break. You turn back one last time. The manor is gone. You blink once, maybe twice, expecting the manor to shimmer back into view like a bad connection on a video call. But it doesn't. The air is still thick with fog. But the space it once filled is empty now. Not ruined, not crumbled, just erased. You're standing at the edge of something the map called the split. It doesn't look like much. Just the usual cliff grass, a few limp seagull feathers, and mist curling in from every direction like it's tired of hiding. But then you spot it. A narrow opening in the tall hedgerow to your right. It wasn't there a second ago. Pulses faintly, like a gap between breaths. You step through it, and find yourself in a small clearing. 3 figures stand in the mist. Not new. Familiar. The priest, the painter, and the pharmacist. Except they don't look like people now. Not exactly. The priest's collar is reversed, blank where there should be white. The painter's hands are stained, but the colors don't exist in any known palette. And the pharmacist is holding a spoon, not a vial, stirring air like tea. You ask them who Margot really was. None answer right away, but the painter finally speaks. She remembered too much. The priest adds, she didn't forget the cliff. The pharmacist murmurs. She thought if she walked forward, it would all reset. You ask again, what did she walk into? And this time, the fog thickens, not around you, but behind them. A doorway, formed not of wood or stone, but just more concentrated mist. It ripples when you blink. She's inside. They say in unison. You approach the fog door cautiously, expecting resistance, but it parts for you like velvet. Inside is a narrow chamber. Stone walls, lanterns, and something you haven't felt since arriving. Warmth. There's a fireplace here, crackling softly, like it's been tended to all along. And beside it, a table, set for tea. 2 chairs, one empty, the other occupied. You freeze. It's Margot, alive, or something like it. She looks exactly as she did in the portrait. Same calm expression, same fog-colored dress. She gestures to the empty chair. You sit without speaking. The tea is already poured, still steaming. You don't drink it. You ask her, quietly, why did you leave? She tilts her head. I didn't. You wait. She continues. I walked, but I didn't leave. Not really. The fog just remembered me differently. You ask what that means. She smiles faintly. Memory lives differently in mist. Mainstream fact? In Victorian England, there was a belief that fog held onto emotion. That walking into heavy mist could amplify sorrow, erase grief, or replay the same thought over and over until you walked back out. If you ever did. Fringe tidbit? A spiritualist diary from 1892 records an experiment in which participants stood in fog to absorb the atmosphere of unresolved stories. Several claimed they walked out changed, names forgotten, family details misaligned. Historians still argue whether these reports were metaphoric trauma accounts, early cases of dissociative episodes, or something stranger. Margot reaches into her coat and pulls out a silver coin. On one side, a tree. On the other, a pair of eyes. She hands it to you. It's the marker. When the time comes, give it to the version of me that doesn't know yet. You ask, which version are you? She shrugs. That's the trick. Suddenly, the room goes darker. The fireplace dies without a hiss. The door you entered through seals behind you. Margot stands. Her silhouette dissolves slightly at the edges. Like steam, she walks toward the back wall and presses her palm to the stone. It dissolves under her touch. Another path revealed. She glances back once. I'm not the mystery, she says. I'm the path. And she vanishes. You're alone again. You stare at the untouched tea and realize you're no longer cold. But that's not comforting. That's disorienting. Because the fog, the real fog, is inside now. You don't stand immediately. The fog that's crept inside you doesn't chill. It doesn't sting your lungs. It just murmurs, quietly, like 1,000 overlapping voices whispering in a language you haven't quite forgotten. Yet, you finally push away from the tea table and follow the path Margot revealed. The wall she vanished through is gone entirely now, leaving behind a corridor shaped more by intention than architecture. Narrow, damp, lit by a faint glow that doesn't come from any visible source. Your footsteps make no sound here. The silence is soft, like it's been cushioned on purpose. Eventually, the passage widens. You step into what must once have been a private chamber. The stone floor is tiled with strange, looping patterns, symbols that feel more emotional than linguistic, like a language that expresses remembrance instead of meaning. At the center of the room stands something unexpected, a mirrored wardrobe, tall, ornate, its surface warped with age or memory or both. You approach, and just before you touch the handle, you notice it. Your reflection is smiling again. You are not. This version of you, reflected in the mirror, tilts their head, lips still curved, eyes just a little off. Too steady, too knowing. You open the wardrobe. Inside, more mirrors, but they're angled strangely, positioned like a maze of reflections that force you to see yourself from every angle, except the one you expect. And behind the central mirror, something faintly pulses. You press it. The glass gives way like skin under pressure. Inside is a slip of paper. One sentence written in a quick, familiar hand. The house remembers the ones who stay too long. Below it, etched faintly into the wooden frame, is the word Sans. You say it aloud, and the mirror fogs over instantly. Except it's not steam, it's a scene. Projection. You see Margot again, standing barefoot in her dressing room, fingers pressed to the mirror, whispering words you can't hear. Behind her, a figure, blurred, tall, and then the image collapses in on itself. Gone. You stare at your reflection again. This time, you're alone. Mainstream fact? Wealthy households in Edwardian England sometimes constructed séance rooms, specially designed chambers with acoustics, hidden lighting, and mirrored angles to enhance the illusion of spirit contact. It was theater mostly, but serious to many. Fringe tidbit? One spiritualist architect reportedly designed a house with invisible alignments, mirrors tuned not to show light, but memory. One diary claimed that reflections could choose when to remember you and when to forget. Historians still argue whether this was performance, delusion, or a lost form of self-hypnosis used to manipulate perception and time. You step away from the wardrobe and notice, near the corner of the room, a shallow drawer. You open it. Inside, a single object. A brooch. Dusty. Tarnished. But it's not Margot's. It's engraved on the back with a different name. F. Ellery, 1871. The The clasp pops open like it's been waiting decades to do so. Inside, a portrait, a different woman, same eyes, same bone structure, but the fashion's older. Hair tied up with mourning pins. Dress black as night fog. You look at the back of the portrait. She walked too. She walked first. You pocket it. The fog in the corridor has returned. Thicker, not pushing you back, not guiding you forward, just watching. You pass through it out into the hedgerow again. But now the air is humming, like wind through an organ pipe, or breath caught in a throat. And up ahead, just past the split in the garden, you see the dressing room window, lit for the first time, and you know you didn't leave that light on. You re-enter the manor. It lets you. The interior is reassembled, different but familiar. You climb the stairs again, back to the dressing room. Everything is where it was, almost, but the mirrors, all of them now show one scene, Margot walking into the fog, again, and again, and again. Only the central mirror remains dark. You walk to it, touch the glass, and it warms beneath your fingers. Then a voice, not yours, not Margot's, says, Version 6, acknowledgement complete, gate to memory unlocked. The mirror cracks, just slightly, just enough for fog to slip through. And suddenly, you remember something from before, something you never lived, but you remember it anyway. The memory, if that's what it is, floods you like cold light through stained glass. You're in a room that isn't this room, but it smells the same. Aged perfume, wax-polished floorboards, something faintly metallic under the velvet. Your hands are smaller, your feet bare, and you're looking into a mirror that isn't reflecting anything at all. It's Margot's memory, but it's also yours. And the cracked mirror is still humming, a low, rhythmic pulse that syncs disturbingly well with your heartbeat. You step back. Behind you now, the portrait above the fireplace. You didn't see it earlier, or maybe you weren't meant to. It's huge, larger-than-life oil on canvas. The brush strokes shimmer slightly in the low light, like they're still drying. And the figure in the painting. Not quite Margot, not quite you. It's a blend. Someone who looks like she walked out of every version of the story. Her dress is made of fog and tulle. Her eyes are yours but older. Her mouth wears that familiar, almost knowing smile. And the nameplate beneath? The one who returned. You stare, and then you see it, just behind her shoulder, barely visible in the swirls of gray. A second silhouette, faceless, mirrored, as if she's being watched in the moment she was painted. You turn quickly, but nothing's behind you. Still, the air has changed. Heavier, quieter. You reach up and touch the edge of the frame, and the painting ripples, like water. You pull your hand back fast, heart kicking up a notch. Because when you look again, the painting has changed. Now there are two figures in it, both facing away, both walking into a fog. You check the mirror again, still cracked, still leaking that shimmer of not quite time. Mainstream fact? Portraiture in the 18th and 19th centuries often included symbolic elements. A hand resting on a globe meant ambition. A dog at one's feet symbolized loyalty. But portraits of women walking away, especially into fog or shadow, are rare and often undocumented. Fringe tidbit? A private collector once claimed to own a painting that updated itself. Every year, the subject appeared slightly older, until the day the canvas was found blank. The subject? An heiress from the coast, surname lost. Historians still argue whether this was a hoax, a myth, or a metaphor for the unreliability of memory across generations. You step back from the frame and hear music again, faint, distant, a single violin, playing a low and mournful waltz. You follow the sound down the hall. It leads not to the ballroom, but to the cellar. Of course it does. The door creaks open before you touch it, and you descend. The walls are damp, the stairs older than the rest of the house. You feel the age of them under each footfall, like descending into someone else's dream. At the bottom, a narrow hall, stone-lined, and something flickering at the far end. Candlelight. You walk toward it, and enter a room that shouldn't exist. It's lined with portraits, but all the faces are blank. All the frames labeled with dates, but no names. And in the center, a table. On it, a guest book. You open it. The last entry is written in looping cursive. M. Lancaster, for 17 p.m. walked forward. And beneath it, a space waiting. A line. You don't pick up the pen, yet, but you understand now. This wasn't just a disappearance. It was a ritual. One repeated. One remembered. By the house. By the fog. By every object Margot left behind. And possibly by you. You hear a click. The mirror upstairs. Somehow you know it's reassembling itself. You hurry back up, boots echoing against stone, breath coming faster. The candlelight flickering harder behind you. When you reach the dressing room again, the mirror is whole. Unbroken. Clean. But it no longer shows your reflection. It shows the garden, just as it looked decades ago. Full, lush, alive. And Margot is walking through it, toward the fog. Again, and again. You whisper her name, and in the mirror she stops. She stops. In the mirror, her figure stiffens mid-step, as though she heard something from the wrong side of the glass. She doesn't turn around, just tilts her head slightly, the way you do when a familiar voice calls you from a dream. You lean closer. The garden she's walking through is impossibly real now. There's motion, wind in the trees, petals stirring across the stone path. You can hear the faint crunch of her footsteps. You even smell something sweet, jasmine or lilac, thick with memory. She moves again, but slower, as if she's waiting for you to follow. And for reasons you don't fully understand, you reach forward. This time, your hand doesn't meet glass. It meets air, cool, fragrant, and wet. You step forward and the world flips. One breath ago, you were in her dressing room. Now you're outside. But not outside now. Outside then. The sky above is lighter, like early evening in spring. The path beneath your feet is moss-lined and worn. The trees are full, and the roses haven't bloomed yet. Margot walks ahead of you, not looking back. You want to call to her, but your voice doesn't work right here. It hums in your throat but never makes it out. So you follow, around a bend, through a broken iron arch, half swallowed by ivy, to the edge of the cliffs. And there the tracks stop, just like they said, just like in the stories. 2 sets of footprints in the soft grass. Then none. You drop to your knees, feel the soil. It's undisturbed, like no one ever walked here at all. Then you see it. In the tall grass, a small, rusted bell, attached to a chain. You touch it lightly. It chimes once, low and distant, and somewhere behind you the world rearranges itself. You stand slowly, and now the fog thickens. Not around your ankles, but your thoughts, like a blanket or a smother. Mainstream fact: seaside cliffs have long been associated with disappearances. Some tragic, others mysterious. In the 1920s, England's Coast of Silence was blamed for at least 18 vanished walkers, whose tracks would end at sheer drop-offs with no signs of a fall. Fringe tidbit: an 1870s spiritualist pamphlet suggested that certain natural fog banks were memory tides, capable of absorbing not just sound or shape, but intention. Those who stepped inside might continue walking forever in another version of their own life. Historians still argue whether these reports were cautionary folklore or early metaphysical theories masquerading as science. You take one slow step back, then another, and suddenly the world glitches. Not visibly, not with light or thunder, but with a tiny skip, the way old video sometimes jumps a frame. And Margot? She's behind you now, standing on the path, watching you with eyes that know you. This time she speaks. Which version of me are you here for? You answer without meaning to. The one who didn't forget. She tilts her head again, then walks toward you. But something's wrong. With every step she takes, the fog tightens around her. The folds of her dress fade into mist. Her skin becomes translucent. Her voice echoes like it's already coming from the past. Don't try to remember the ending, she says softly. It changes. She places something in your hand. You look down. It's the same brooch you found earlier. But now the portrait inside is you, just slightly off, like a dream version of your face. You glance back up. She's gone. The garden is gone. And you're standing alone on the cliff edge. The sky darker now. You look at your feet. 2 sets of footprints. Yours and someone else's, leading forward, ending at nothing. You stare at the prints in the earth. Yours unmistakable, boots worn slightly uneven from the left heel. The other set, barefoot, smaller, pressed with precision like she walked slowly, with purpose. Then they vanish at the cliff's edge, not broken or smeared by panic, just gone, like someone paused mid-stride and simply unstitched herself from the story. You take a shaky step back, and that's when the horn sounds again. Low, long too close. You whirl around. The manor is back, not flickering, not shadowed, whole, lit from within, like it's been there the whole time and you're the one who disappeared. You don't question it. You run, up the path, heart hammering, air thick with sea salt and something faintly metallic, like breath caught in a copper pipe. You stumble once, catch yourself on an old iron fence that wasn't there a minute ago, and push forward. The door to the tower is open. You didn't open it. It's the same watchtower mentioned in the clippings, used a century ago to spot ships veering off course. Long disused, supposedly sealed. You climb the spiral stairs. They groan under your weight like they remember other people, other disappearances. At the top, a single room, dusty, glass windows fogged from the inside, but something glows from the far corner. You approach. It's a journal, bound in cracked leather, a name scrawled in looping ink. F. Ellery. You open it. Inside, entry after entry, some written in the same steady hand, others shakier, rushed, but every one of them dated before Margot's disappearance. Weeks before, months. You read a passage at random. March 3rd. The girl comes again. Each time she forgets a little less. Each time I try to warn her. Each time, she still walks forward. You turn the page. March 9th. I left the map where she would find it. The watch is stuck at 4:17 again. I think she's starting to remember the cliffs. Flip again. March 17th. She spoke my name. Just once. I felt it. Somewhere deep. Like I'm still there with her. And then, page torn out. But the paper's still there, tucked into the back cover. You unfold it. It's Margot's handwriting. You recognize the loops. It reads, "They say fog is only water and air. But they're wrong. Fog is memory made visible. The past rising to breathe you back in." You close the journal. The room sways gently, like a boat. You look out the window. The fog doesn't drift anymore. Pulses. Rhythmic. Alive. And then you hear something else. Breathing. Not yours. You turn. And in the reflection of the fogged glass, you see her. Margot, sitting in the chair across the room, hands folded in her lap. But when you turn, she's not there. Only the chair, still warm. You sit down slowly, place the journal on the windowsill, and notice something scrawled on the inside of the armrest. Don't write your name unless you're ready to forget it. Mainstream fact: watchtowers in the early 20th century were often decommissioned post-World War I, especially along safer coastlines. Some were converted into weather stations, others into private retreats. Fringe tidbit: one English coastal tower, when reopened for restoration in 1978, was found with journals dated from 1901 to 1923, none signed. Every entry ended with, "The fog remembers me." Historians still argue whether these were anonymous memoirs, collaborative fiction, or echoes of something less explainable. You rise again. The air is heavy with waiting. And there, on the windowsill where you placed the journal, a new object. A single glove, child-sized, embroidered with a faded crest. A tree and two mirrored eyes. It matches the brooch. You pick it up. It smells faintly of roses. You place it in your pocket next to the coin Margot gave you. And as you descend the tower, one last journal entry loops in your mind. If she remembers too much, she won't be able to leave again. You reach the bottom step, and the garden path is gone. The path is simply gone. Where once there was crushed stone bordered by low hedges, now there's just smooth, unbroken grass. Like no one ever walked here at all. Like the garden was never meant to be entered a second time. You stand still for a moment, listening. Not to sound exactly, but to shift. The way a room feels different when someone steps in behind you. But nothing comes. And yet, you don't feel alone. You turn toward the side hedge, instinct tugging you toward the place the map marked but never named. A circle of dotted lines between the cliff and the greenhouse. And that's when you see it. The maze. It wasn't there this morning. Wasn't on the walk to the tower. But now it rises before you. Hedges taller than your head, dense, velvet green, impossibly well kept for something that shouldn't exist. No birds, no breeze, no sound at all, just the maze. And at its center, something gleaming. You step inside, and immediately the path seems longer than it looks. Every turn leads to another. Every corner echoes back with the faintest whisper. Not of voices, but memories. Your own. You hear the sound of a chair scraping, a teacup clicking against porcelain, footsteps in a hallway you've never walked. But remember clearly, you pass a hedge that ripples like water when your sleeve brushes it. You see, briefly, the silhouette of someone else turning a corner ahead of you. But when you run to catch up, nothing. Just another wall, another turn. You reach a clearing. Perfect circle. At the center, an iron door. Ancient, rusted, but with an engraving that looks freshly carved. It reads, 6 enter. 1 remembers. All return. You place your hand on the handle. It burns slightly, but not with heat. More like the tingle of a limb waking up after going numb. The door swings open, and behind it, a garden, identical to Margot's, but not. The light is wrong. The sky is lavender, the air static. And in the distance, a woman in gray. Not Margot, older, more tired, pouring tea at a stone table. You approach slowly. She doesn't look up, just gestures to the chair across from her. You sit. She finally meets your eyes. Hers are pale, glassy, but not blind. About time, she says. You don't ask who she is. You already know. She smiles like she's reading your thoughts. You've been here before, she says, pouring you tea. 6 times now. Different names. Same eyes. You glance at the brooch in your pocket. She nods at it. Have you opened it yet? You nod. Good. she says. That means we're almost ready. You ask, ready for what? Her smile fades just slightly. To finish. The fog outside the garden walls grows darker, denser, more urgent, like it's closing in, or preparing something. You sip the tea. It's warm, tastes like honey and dust. Mainstream fact? Throughout the 19th century, certain Parisian salons were designed with mirrored walls and fog-filled gardens for sensory exploration. A blend of art, spiritualism, and psychology. Patrons claimed the walks led to vivid visions, even recovered memories. Fringe tidbit? In 1885, a writer named Maud Weir described a secret maze in the gardens of her cousin's estate that shifted while walked, like it wanted to trap only those who remembered too much. Historians still argue whether these spaces were metaphorical, theatrical installations, or places designed to thin the veil between experience and memory. The woman sets her teacup down and says, "It's time to give it back." You frown. "What?" "The coin," she says. "The one she gave you." You hesitate, then slide it onto the table. She presses a finger to it, and it vanishes, replaced by a mirror shard. She lifts it gently. "Take this," she says. "You'll need to see it clearly when the time comes." The mirror fragment is cold in your hand, but not reflective. Not yet. She stands, and so do you. And as you walk away from the garden, the table behind you dissolves into mist. You step back through the iron door, but now the maze has changed. The hedges are higher, closer, the air between them dense and fragrant, like overripe fruit or wilted lilies at the end of a long funeral. There are no paths now, just one long corridor that turns with no warning, like it's folding in on itself. And behind you, silence. Obidza. Watchful. You hold the mirror shard tight in your palm, its surface still opaque. Still waiting. You take the only turn offered and emerge into a small courtyard you've never seen before. Cobblestone underfoot, for broken columns at the corners, and in the center, an old fountain. It's dry, cracked, overgrown with vines, but something glints in the basin. You crouch and reach down. It's a locket, silver. You flip it open. Inside, a faded photograph. Not of Margot, not of you. It's the woman in gray, sitting at the tea table, a young girl beside her. Same gray dress, but a different garden. She's been here longer than you thought. Much longer. As you rise, the fog parts slightly. And there, at the far side of the courtyard, a stairway. Stone, ancient, and winding down. You follow it, and enter a chamber unlike any you've seen so far. Rounded ceiling, stone shelves, a circular mosaic on the floor. Its tiles form the shape of an eye. No, not an eye. A mirror, broken. At the center, an altar. Upon it, 6 identical brooches, each with a different face inside. Each one you, in versions you barely recognize. One with darker hair, one with a scar above the eye, one smiling a little too wide, one crying. You glance at the mirror shard in your hand. Its surface shimmers, then shows all 6 faces at once, overlaying your own reflection. And the fog? It slithers down the walls now, like it's descending with intent. You hear a sound behind you. Turn, and there she is, the woman in gray, only now she's younger, exactly as she looked in the locket photo. "You're close," she says softly. "To what?" "To being remembered." She walks slowly around the altar. "The house chooses who it keeps," she says. "But the fog? The fog chooses who it returns." You ask her if this is where Margot ended. She shakes her head. "No one ends here. We just echo." She reaches for one of the brooches, holds it in both hands, closes her eyes, and breathes. When she opens them again, She's not the same. Not entirely. There's something new behind her gaze. A recognition. "You remember me," she says, not as a question. You nod. You don't know why, but you do. Mainstream fact? In ancient Greece, some temples had mirrored floors designed to reflect the sky, symbolizing the gods walking above and below. Visitors were encouraged to view themselves while making offerings, creating a sense of layered reality. Fringe tidbit? A 1904 seance in Marseilles claimed to contact the Keeper of Six Faces, a spirit said to appear only when the same soul had tried and failed to leave a certain house 6 times. The participants swore they left with someone else's memories. Historians still argue whether this tale was born from group delusion, experimental hypnosis, or collective exposure to toxic gas during the fog-heavy season. The woman in gray places the brooch back on the altar, then takes your hand. "You have one more chance," she says. "To walk." You ask her, "Walk where?" But she's already fading. Literally, becoming mist at the edges. You grab the mirror shard again. Now it reflects the room plus one extra detail. A doorway. Behind the altar. You spin around. There it is. Where none had been before. You step through, and the sound of the fountain returns behind you, as if it had been flowing all along. The doorway doesn't lead outside. It doesn't lead anywhere that makes immediate sense. Just a long, narrow corridor, walls of mist and shadow, floor of smooth stone that doesn't echo underfoot. No light source, but everything is softly aglow, as if memory itself is illuminating the way. You hold the mirror shard in front of you like a lantern. Its surface now shows the corridor ahead. But one step behind you, something flickers across its face. You freeze, turn around. Nothing there. But in the shard, that flicker is clearer now. A figure moving in perfect sync, always just a step behind. Not following. Mirroring. You test it. Take a step to the side. It does the same. You stop. It stops. Except this time it smiles. You don't. You tuck the shard away and walk faster. The corridor curves now. Slightly. Subtly. A bend so slow you barely notice. Then stairs. Descending again. As if this whole place is coiled inward like a spiral shell. You reach the bottom. And enter what looks like a study. But not one from your world. The ceiling arches with fog. The books on the shelves shift titles every time you blink. The fireplace burns with no logs, just light. And on the desk, a guest book, the same one you saw in the cellar. Only now it's closed. You open it again. The entries are different. Longer, older. F. Ellery, 1871. Watched her vanish. Couldn't follow. M. Lancaster, 1932. Forgot. Then remembered. Then forgot again. T. Vale, 1965. Refused the 6th walk. Left the coin. Then a blank line. Waiting. You pick up the pen beside it. And the moment your fingers curl around it, you remember everything. Not all at once, but in a soft, unbearable wave. You remember the first walk. The garden in full bloom. Margot reaching for your hand. The mistake, choosing to follow instead of listen. You remember writing the letters. Leaving the pearls. Whispering your name into the cracked mirror. You remember not being Margot at all. And yet, always being part of her story. You drop the pen. And step back. The mirror shard glows hotter in your pocket now. You pull it out. And this time it reflects you. Fully. But not the version standing here. A younger one. Smiling. Walking through the garden in that same fog-colored dress. And behind her, you. Watching. Again. You step toward the mirror. And the room begins to dissolve. Not vanish, reconfigure. Bookshelves become trees. Desk becomes stone. Walls become ivy. You're in the garden again. At dusk, no manor in sight.
No voices.
Just the soft crunch of your footsteps. You follow the sound, and reach the place where the footprints always ended. But now there's more. A path of stone just barely visible beneath the overgrowth. You clear it, follow it, and the air changes. Crisper, more real. And there, at the end of the path, an archway. Wooden, covered in lichen, marked with a small brass plaque. You wipe it clean. It reads, "Return only when the mirror calls your name." Mainstream fact? In medieval Europe, mirrors were believed to trap souls, which is why many households covered them after a death. The superstition was that a spirit might become stuck in its own reflection and wander forever. Fringe tidbit? A 1911 occult manual titled The Mirror Path describes reflections that consume, claiming some mirrors were not objects but doors, anchored only by the memory of those who once looked inside them. Historians still argue whether this was early spiritual metaphor, optical illusion theory, or coded language among esoteric circles. You step under the arch. The fog doesn't lift, but the pressure behind your eyes eases. Like the house is done watching you now. For the first time, you feel like you're ahead of the story, not just inside it. The path continues, but the garden around it no longer looks overgrown or neglected. The leaves have gloss, the hedges are neatly trimmed, and lanterns, old brass ones you swear were never here before, glow faintly in the mist. Each one flickers as you pass, as though acknowledging you. You glance at the mirror shard again, still glowing, but now it hums in your hand. The air is cooler here, not chilling, just precise. Every breath tastes like rosemary, salt, and something faintly floral, like a perfume someone wore decades ago and never changed. Ahead, a bench, simple, stone. Sitting on it, a girl, not Margot, younger. She's wearing a school uniform that's clearly not from this era. Collar high, shoes buckled, cuffs embroidered with a crest you've seen once before. The one from the glove. She's holding a mirror, not a shard, a full circular one. She turns it over in her hands without looking up. "I dropped something," she says very quietly. You approach. "What did you drop?" "My name," she replies. You sit beside her. Carefully. Silence stretches. Then she holds the mirror out to you. "I'm not allowed to look at it anymore," she says. "But you can." You take it. The glass is cloudy at first, then clears, and you see the house, but not as it was, as it is. Whole, thriving, full of guests, voices, laughter, windows open wide. Margot sits at the far end of a long dinner table, and so do you. Your reflection watches the scene as if it's being broadcast from some memory you never lived, but always almost did. The girl beside you says, "That version never broke the mirror. That version never looked back." You ask her why you're seeing this. She shrugs. "Because the house wanted you to know. There's always another walk, another path. It's not about solving the mystery." She stands, brushing dirt from her skirt. "It's about choosing whether you want to remember it." She walks away, disappearing between hedges that seem to open for her. You call out, "What's your name?" But she doesn't answer. The mirror turns to frost in your hands and cracks. One line right down the center. You don't drop it. You set it on the bench. Stand. And now you're in the orchard. Or what used to be the orchard. The fog is heavier here, but warmer too. Somewhere in the distance, music. Not violin this time. Piano. Playing a waltz just slow enough to sound like breathing. You follow the sound through apple trees that twist a little too precisely, branches forming something close to archways. You come to another clearing, and in it Margot, finally, standing at the center, facing you, her hands empty, her expression neutral. "Do you remember me now?" she asks. You hesitate, then nod. "Yes." She exhales slowly, and the fog parts for just a moment behind her, revealing a doorway, not wooden or stone, a veil, shimmering, slightly rippling, like the surface of a still lake disturbed by breath. She gestures to it. "You don't have to go through. Not if you'd rather forget again." You step closer. She continues. "If you walk through, you take it all with you. The brooch, the coin, the mirror, the memory." You ask her what's on the other side. "Yourself," she says. "But not the version who followed. The version who stayed." Mainstream fact? In folklore across Europe, there are thin places, locations where the barrier between our world and the other world is said to be more permeable. Crossings aren't always dramatic. Sometimes they're as gentle as walking into mist. Fringe tidbit? An unverified 1939 letter from a French scholar mentioned the seventh veil, a phenomenon that appeared only after someone had stepped between mirrors, lost their name, and regained it under fog. Historians still argue whether this letter was authentic, a literary invention, or a poetic metaphor for grief. You take one step forward. Margot smiles, just slightly, and fades, not like a ghost, like a light being dimmed. And now you're alone, except for the veil, waiting. You stand at the edge of the veil. The mist no longer swirls, it waits. There's no sound now, not the distant piano, not the breath of wind through apple leaves, not even your own footsteps. It's the kind of silence that suggests the story has paused to ask, "Are you sure?" You don't answer aloud. You reach into your pocket. The brooch, the glove, the mirror shard, all still there, all heavier than before. You hold them in your palm. They don't feel like objects anymore. They feel like keys. You take a breath and walk forward, through the veil. First, there's nothing. Not black, not white, just absence. The kind of emptiness that feels like the inside of a long-forgotten dream. Then sound, a soft echo, like water dripping in a distant room. Then light, warm, diffused, like sunlight filtering through dust motes. And then you see it, the manor, again, but this time from the outside. You're standing in front of it, but it's not the manor from before. The slightly younger, fresher, windows intact, garden still wild, but intentional, like it was always meant to grow that way. You look down. Your hands are different, not older, not younger, just new. And in the reflection of a nearby puddle, you see your face. But not the version you brought with you, a version that belongs here. The fog curls at your feet like a pet returning home. You walk up the steps, push open the front door. Inside, the scent of rosemary, tea, and burning wood. The portrait over the mantel is back. But the face is different now. It's you, not smiling, just watching. You hear movement upstairs, light footsteps, a door creaking open. You follow the sound, up the spiral staircase, past the landing with the cracked tiles, to the dressing room. The door is ajar. Inside, the mirrors are all intact, clean, and each one shows the same thing. You, standing in the doorway, looking back. But here's the part that breaks something in you. One mirror flickers, shows Margot, just for a second. She winks. Then it's you again. You step inside. Look into the central mirror. It's no longer a mirror. It's a window to another walk, another garden, another version of the story, waiting for its chance to be remembered. Mainstream fact? In some Buddhist traditions, the concept of bardo refers to an in-between state, a place of transition between death and rebirth, past and future. A liminal place where memory, identity, and choice converge. Fringe tidbit: a 1921 seance transcript mentions the mirror room of the sixth step, where participants claim to relive their lives from the perspective of someone watching them from across time. Historians still argue whether this was a symbolic experience, an elaborate hallucination, or a peek behind the veil of linear memory. You reach out, touch the mirror again. It ripples, like before, and this time it doesn't reflect your face. It reflects your intention, which is to stay, not to chase Margot, not to walk the cliffs again, not to forget, but to remain, here, as the version who understood the mystery wasn't in what was lost, but in what kept returning. You close the door behind you, and let the mirror fade to stillness. The mirror no longer shimmers. It's just a mirror now, a quiet pane of silver and memory, not asking, not warning, just being, like it always was, waiting for you to look at it with the right kind of eyes. You don't need to speak. You've said all there is to say. You sit at the edge of Margot's dressing table, hands folded, the soft velvet of the chair arm still worn where generations before you must have gripped it while staring into the same uncertain glass. The fog no longer presses in through the windows. It sits outside like a guest, uninvited but patient. And for once you can hear your own heartbeat, not racing, just steady, like it knows the walk is over. On the table before you, the objects lay arranged without your doing. The brooch, closed, the mirror shard, dull now, the glove, folded, its embroidered eyes facing upward. You don't touch them. They don't need to be carried anymore. In the corner of the room, the wardrobe creaks slightly. Just a sound, not an omen. And from downstairs you hear soft movement. A teacup placed on a saucer. The clink of a spoon. You don't rise, because you understand something very simple now. The house remembers the ones who stay, but it only keeps the ones who choose to. You look again at your reflection, not searching for Margot, or for answers, or for escape, just looking, and the mirror returns the gaze. And for the first time, it doesn't change. Mainstream fact: Victorian homes often included a withdrawing room, a private chamber where guests could gather after dinner, usually used by women, often filled with books, embroidery, or music. These rooms were meant for pause, for quiet, for reflection. Fringe tidbit: one Victorian-era journal describes a withdrawing room in an old manor where mirrors were intentionally fogged from behind. The reason? To keep reflections from wandering too far from their sources. Historians still argue whether this was a decorative quirk, an early psychological experiment, or an attempt to hold memory in one place. Outside the window, the sky fades to dusk. No drama, no final twist, just softening light. You rise, leave the dressing room door open behind you, descend the stairs. The manor welcomes your steps with soft echoes. The portrait in the hallway has changed again. Now it's empty, just a chair, waiting. The garden gate is ajar. Beyond it, not fog, just night, still, quiet, peaceful. And as you step outside, you realize you're not walking into a mystery anymore. You're walking out of one. With every step, the memories settle. Not gone, just no longer pressing at the edges of your mind. The wind carries the faintest sound of laughter, of footsteps on gravel, of the house exhaling, satisfied. And you no longer chasing the story. You are the story. Now you walk forward not to find Margot, but to leave the door open for the next version of you who wanders in. Because someone always does. And now there's a trail to follow. The house grows small behind you. Its lights dim, its breath calm. It no longer follows you in your thoughts. Simply rests, like a page turned, like a song resolved to its final note. Your shoes crunch softly on the path beneath you, each step a little slower, a little quieter. The night air is cool but gentle now, carrying no questions. Just stillness, just closure. The fog, when it returns, isn't ominous. It's just part of the evening, soft,
Familiar.
like an old sweater pulled around your shoulders. You pause beside the gate and take one last look at the manor's silhouette. You don't need to say goodbye. It already knows, and you already understand. The mysteries you once chased no longer need solving. They need holding, letting them breathe beside you, like the night air, curious, mysterious, and endlessly gentle. You close your eyes, feel the quiet, let your shoulders drop, let the story fade, not vanish, not disappear, just rest, like you will, soon. So let the fog cradle you now. Let it pull away every edge of worry. Let it soften the shapes of your day and blur the edges of thought. You're safe here. It's over. And yet, always beginning again.